Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. How's it going, guys? We are back to preview the Brisbane Lions. I've just altered the laptop location to hopefully avoid this blaring sun out of my window. So hopefully things aren't as hectic on the eyes as they were for the other. It might have been my team picker. The light was just blaring in. It was some wild stuff. Swap the room around as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but desk used to be over there up against the mirror, and I presume you can see the mirror. Hopefully it's not reflecting into the absolute dump that my room currently is. I say currently, but let's face it, that's its natural state. But so a bit of a change up. Sure, I just had a bit of spare time. I thought, you know what, I'm going to get this what's it called, a vacuum. I haven't used it too often, but I found one. And thought I'd just vacuum the old room up and move a few bits and pieces around to get a nice, compact, efficient setup in the room. And I've bought a plant. Probably can't see it on that angle. But let's get stuck into the Brisbane Lions preview. As always, we're doing this a little bit different. I say as always, I mean as seen in the Adelaide Crows preview. We're just going through all the relevant players. Previous years, Shorty's been like, here's your lock, here's your bargain, here's your value player risk. And I just found it difficult to pinpoint a player, and I was kind of like sometimes searching for the right category for a certain type of player. And I just thought, let's just strip it back and let's just talk about the guys we need to talk about. And also make it a little bit easier to follow along as I have the tabs above, so you know who I'm going to talk about and roughly when, because I'll just go left to right and you guys can follow along and skip along if you want to see a certain player or hear about a certain guy who's rolling across the top there. So let's get stuck into it. Of course, I was having a bit of a look at their ins and outs. Brisbane did a bit, and they are a pretty hot team. You know, they're a side that a lot of people felt have been close and a really nice off-season. Some are saying probably the best of most clubs. And all of a sudden, they're right back in that window. And I think this man is going to really be a big part of that. And honestly, he's my first pick player in the whole game. Josh Dunkley, absolute superstar. As soon as he went to Brisbane, I thought, I'm picking this bloke because he's going to get some genuine midfield time, which he didn't always get at the Bulldogs. And I was committed to picking him even if he was a midfielder. Then we get a juicy little mid-forward option. Oh, mate, doesn't get easier than that. Just lock and load him. Just do it. I think you can build your team and your forward line around him. He finds a way. Let's go to his just averages. He finds a way to average really nicely anyway. You know, really consistent guy. 116 shows what he can do. And I think the start of 2020 was similar. I think he had some injuries, but the first half was insane. Yeah, so had a 67, but then, I'm probably putting a bit of mayo on that. 131, 128. Then he missed a lot of footy, but you could just see 128 off 16 touches. What the hell? That is wild. Wonder what 21 did. Maybe I'm getting my years mixed up. I am getting my years mixed up. So there you go. This was the start. I was thinking, look at that. A red hot start. Averaging, that must be 126, 127, something like that. Add it up. See if Shorty's maths is on point. But then he got injured and just never returned to form, and he never got the opportunity to. He was played in a different role, as Beveridge so often can do. He's a bit of a bloke who is blessed with so many midfielders at the Dogs. Therefore, some of them have to end up on a wing or a half-forward flank or have a heavy rotation on off the bench and through that midfield. I don't see that happening at Brisbane. Obviously, they do have a very good midfield, but I think he and Lachie Neale will own that. McCluggage can have his roles a bit more outside. I think Jared Berry probably gets squeezed out a little bit. And then Zorko is, of course, twilight of his career. And we already saw Lions sort of take a backward step. And Cam Rayner, bit of a X-factor, we'll wait and see. But I won't spend too much time on Dunkley because I'm probably just preaching to the converted. This bloke's a lock. Let's also keep that midfield flavour running as we talk about Lachie Neale. And I don't have to talk too much about this either. He is a lock. You can get him in your side if you'd like. I'd strongly endorse it. He's just not going to let you down. Now, we had an absolute gift last year, having him at that sort of a price, because look at that. He is 110 plus absolute bank, and as a Brisbane Lion, he's basically been 120 plus, aside from that, which I presume was injury affected or Oh, that's right. He had that weird calf concern or something. He was off. He was playing, but definitely wasn't at his fittest. So, of course, we're paying the big bucks, but you got to pay him somewhere. And in the midfield with absolute jets like Neale, Oliver, Miller, Laird, fair enough. And particularly Miller, Oliver, and Neale. I think those guys have shown 120 plus back to back to back so often. So, yeah, Lachie Neale. You can bank him. You can really build that side around him. Now, this next installment comes from one of my tennis partners, Kov, who is a dangerous man on the beers as well. And he said to me last night, he said, Shorty, you got to put Darcy Wilmot in there for your options for Brisbane. I hadn't thought about him, but at 123k down back, he's a bit of food for thought. Now, obviously, last year, no opportunities last year. He must have got them the year before, did he? Oh, he got them through finals. That's right. Sorry, Kov, I'm a bit slow there, mate. You did mention that he played all 3 finals, but of course no home and away matches, which puts him at 123k. Look, he's a lively player. He's got that creativity, that speed, that dash, and certainly showed it at times in the finals. Brought a fair bit of excitement. He's a watch. I try to not talk too much about rookies at this stage of the year because they will be decided by their pre-seasons. I mean, I can sit here and say any rookie's a chance. I mean, some are more than others, but I do have a couple of rookies to talk about here for the Lions because we will talk about Will Ashcroft in a second as well. But Darcy Wilmot, he'll need a good pre-season. I think he's a strong chance for the best 22. And if he is in there, then yeah, he's a strong consider. In fact, if he's in the best 22, you lock him into your side because he's 123. But the bloke you'll probably be right up against, and we've got a real half-back flavour going on for these next few players, is Connor McKenna. Now, he comes to the Brisbane Lions. He was in talks with Geelong and a few others. Of course, he's played at Essendon. Now is back in business. And we saw him play some really good footy. Of course, we don't have access to the SuperCoach numbers right here, but we saw him play some really nice games. I mean, I don't think 2020 was really his go because that was one of the real reasons he went back. I mean, COVID, seeing family, really hurt him, and I think wanted to get back there, back home to Ireland. But, you can regularly see he's around the 20-touch mark. He even had a 35 in that final round against the Pies. He's a run and carry player, kicks the ball. Look at that. There's always more kicks than handballs. A real run and carry type, creative, takes the game on. He's at 167k and is a strong consider. My man Langers just went for a drive with him, got a bit of lunch. He's a big fan of Connor McKenna. And look, I think he'll be right in that mix. Watto also tells me, Brisbane Lions fan, that he is going to play round 1. I'll just wait and see. I genuinely think when you got Rich, Wilmot, Coleman, McKenna, does Ashcroft roll off a halfback flank or is he a wing or does he get any time in that midfield? We'll wait and see. But I just think we've got to see a good pre-season from him. He hasn't played footy for a while, but one thing we know, he will get that pill and he'll run and he'll carry and he'll bite things off that not many others will, and he'll take the game on. So it'll be an exciting watch, and if he's in the best 22, I think we've got to have a crack because at 167k, it's not much of an outlay. So he's a strong consider with a big pre-season ahead. Now, I will talk about Will Ashcroft now. Now, obviously, we don't have any footy wire stats for the young lad because, of course, he's a drafty and we don't always include drafties in these, but Will Ashcroft is another beast. He's around that 200k mark, as you're always going to get with these top draft picks, and he's an absolute superstar on the rise. Look at those numbers, 34 touches in NAB League, and it was just a regular occurrence that he would just have huge numbers. Now, of course, father-son finds him at Brisbane, and all the comparisons come, he's the next Nick Dacos. We're going to get another Nick Dacos-like season. Look, I think we will, and I think he's got to be in our teams. But to expect something like Dacos produced, I'm not saying he can't do it, but I think it'd be great if we could get an average around the 80 mark from him. I think 80 for any youngster is fantastic, let alone a 91 in your first year. That's absurd. So, and they might even play slightly different roles. Ashcroft, like I said just before, where does he actually land at Brisbane? Because that Brisbane midfield looks a bit different to, say, a Collingwood midfield, and as does their half-backs. Dacos could just sit on that half-back line. the Lions have plenty in that front. So whether he plays a bit on the flank, pushing up, on a wing at times, or maybe he does get some opportunity inside of that midfield engine room, which would be bloody good going, but he is a huge talent. So he'll be in that round one team, barring any sort of injury or niggles through the pre-season, and he'll be a bloke that we talk about for a long, long time and select in SuperCoach for a long, long time. This bloke's a star. He's going to do some massive things, and like I said, wishing him well, no injuries, and he'll be a lock in all of our sides. And I'm just going to finish with Keidean Coleman, and I think he's a really interesting type. It became clear towards the end of the year that Daniel Rich was, in a way, hampering Coleman, but it's that age-old thing of passing the baton, that you can't just remove the older statesman who still plays really good footy until they sort of retire. Now, Rich is 32, and I just want to do a little comparison here. Coleman, of course, is the next one. He's nearly 23, and they're different types of halfback flankers. Neither are absolutely blessed with speed, but Rich is that long penetrating kick, where Coleman's more of your finesser. He just can land it on a dime, a really nice weighted kick, has a bit more of a sidestep about him, a real class operator. And we were talking about him this time last year because there were signs that he could do what he did at certain stages. Of course, a 42, and I think he showed some signs maybe late in the year. Yeah, he had 87, 90, 77. So the signs were there, and we saw them again at stages in 2022. I just want to give you a little bit of a taste of the difference between the two when one plays and one doesn't. So this might be difficult because there's a whole lot of rounds here and it might be really tricky to figure it out. But let's see. I feel like Daniel Rich missed some games. He missed 17 and 18. That might have been all. So, okay, I thought we might have got a bit more of a sample size, but we didn't. Yeah, look, that's probably not my best example of all time. But the fact is, I think Coleman had this stretch here from rounds 13 to 20 where he was just outstanding. And, of course, we did see Rich feature in a few of those. But he did miss round 20. He did miss round 17 and 18, and in those games Rich did miss. Coleman had 25 and 30, 119 and 105. Now, like I said, they both played round 16. They both had pretty solid games. I mean, Rich didn't, so Coleman overtook it. I just wonder, did Rich go off early there? Did that sort of cause Coleman to pick up the slack? Let's do a little bit of a deep dive here. What did I say? Round 16. Yeah, okay. Now we're cooking. Shorty's example's coming to life now. Here we go. All right. We've got the picture now. Nothing like a bit of background work live on the video. Round 16. Rich goes down after 32% of the game. Only has 10 touches, and that sees him miss some footy. So Coleman picks up the slack. 24 touches, 118. Rich then misses the next couple of games. Misses 18. He played 19 and then missed 20. That's kind of weird. But the facts are there. He had 5 tons through the year, and 3 of them coincided when Rich wasn't even there. So it took me a while to get to there. It took me a while to get you there with the point and the example and a bit of proof. But what I'm trying to say is Coleman will one day take the reins as the main distributor out of the backline for the Lions. Is that now? Is that this year? You'd say that's highly unlikely. Because while Rich is there, there's at the very least, going to be a sharing of the load. So that's how I see it, which leads me to sort of say we're not going to select Coleman at a relatively awkward price because you really need him at this price to boost his way up to premium status. And I just think with Rich still on the market, as well as a few of these other halfback flankers that I've mentioned, there's a fair bit in that melting pot that might just affect. It might not. It might affect the scores that Coleman can produce. But there will be a time when Coleman's the main guy out of the back line, taking kick-ins, rolling off for the handball receive, and getting regular tons for our SuperCoach side. And when that day comes, he'll be a very, very popular selection. So for mine, there's too much risk at the moment. But yeah, that's a wrap. That is a Brisbane Lions wrap. Let me know what you think about some of those selections. Do you agree with it? Do you think I'm totally off the mark? I thought about talking about Zorko, but I left him out. I just didn't feel like he was relevant enough to talk about, even though he is a forward now. So yeah, like I say always, if you think I missed someone or you got a few comments on anything I've mentioned throughout the video, chuck it below. I'd love to hear from you. We'll keep these previews rolling throughout the year and a bit of the start of next. But until then, have a good day, and I'll certainly have these videos pumping out pretty regular for you. So I'll catch you soon. Cheers.